The auction hall was loud only minutes ago. Voices shouted numbers. Lights flashed. Creatures from many planets argued and laughed as they competed for rare items. For traders, it was just another profitable night. But now, the hall was almost empty. Only one item remained. At the center of the room stood a giant woman, chained to a heavy metal platform. The lights above her were dim, and the auction screen beside her showed one final message. Unsold. She did not move. Her long hair covered part of her face, but her eyes remained open, watching everyone who passed. Not with fear, with anger. The traders whispered as they left. That's the untamable one. She broke 3 owners. Not worth the risk. The giant woman heard every word, but she said nothing. She had heard worse before. The auctioneer sighed and closed his tablet. End of session, he announced. Remove the item tomorrow. One by one, the guards powered down the restraints. Not to free her, only to save energy. The chain still held her arms and legs tightly. She lowered her head slightly, exhausted after hours of standing under bright lights. Soon, only workers remained. Cleaning drones floated across the floor. Broken containers were collected. The excitement of the auction disappeared, leaving behind silence and cold air. That was when Elias noticed her. He was not a buyer, not a soldier, just a human maintenance worker hired to fix lights and clean damaged equipment after events. Most people never noticed him. He pushed a small repair cart across the floor, stopping when he reached the center platform. The giant woman looked down at him slowly. Most people avoided her eyes. Elias didn't. For a moment, neither of them moved. Up close, she did not look wild or dangerous. She looked tired. Her skin showed old scars. The chains around her wrists were heavy enough to hurt even someone her size. You must be uncomfortable, Elias said quietly, almost to himself. The nearest guard snapped at him. Don't talk to it. Elias frowned slightly. The guard shrugged. Whatever she is, she's trouble. The giant woman's eyes narrowed, expecting the human to step back like everyone else. But he didn't. Instead, Elias crouched near one of the control panels, checking the damaged lock system. Sparks flickered from exposed wires. They over-tightened these, he said. That's why the system keeps failing. The guard looked annoyed. Just fix it and move on. Elias nodded, but as he worked, he spoke again, this time softly enough that only she could hear. You don't have to fight anymore. The auction is over. The giant woman stared at him, confused. No one had spoken to her like that before. Not as a person. For the first time since arriving, her shoulders relaxed slightly. The guard noticed and stepped forward quickly. Hey, why did she stop struggling? Elias looked up. Maybe she's tired. The guard didn't like that answer. High above them, behind a dark glass window, someone else was watching. A tall figure in expensive clothing leaned forward with interest. A human, the observer said quietly. Interesting. Back on the floor, Elias finished adjusting the control panel. The chains loosened just enough to stop cutting into her skin, but not enough to free her. The giant woman exhaled slowly. A small sound, almost like relief. Their eyes met again. Thank you, she said, her voice low and careful, as if used as speaking kindly. Elias blinked in surprise. He had not expected her to speak at all. You're welcome, he replied. For a brief moment, the noisy auction hall felt strangely peaceful. Then alarms suddenly flashed red across the walls. The guard cursed. What now? A message appeared on the main screen. Private claim request received. The giant woman's expression changed instantly. The calm disappeared, replaced by tension. She knew what that meant. Someone powerful had decided they wanted her after all. Above them, the observer smiled faintly. Prepare transport, the voice ordered, and bring me the human. Elias felt a cold chill run down his spine, though he did not yet understand why. The auction may have ended, but his real trouble had just begun. The red alarm lights slowly stopped flashing, but the tension in the auction hall did not disappear. Elias stood beside his repair cart, watching guards suddenly move with urgency. New orders came through their communicators. More security entered the hall, and the atmosphere changed from quiet cleanup to controlled panic. The giant woman noticed it too. Her body became still again, muscles tense, eyes watching every movement around her. Whatever this private claim was, she clearly did not welcome it. Elias leaned closer to the control panel, pretending to check the system again. "What's happening?" he asked one of the guards. The guard avoided his eyes. "Not your concern. Finish your job." That answer only made Elias more uneasy. Above them, heavy doors opened, and a group of well-armed men entered the hall. Their armor was clean and expensive, not like normal station security. They walked with confidence, as if everything already belonged to them. The giant woman's chains rattled softly as she shifted her weight. Fear flashed across her face for only a second, but Elias saw it. That was when he understood something important. She wasn't dangerous because she enjoyed violence. She was dangerous because she refused to surrender. One of the new arrivals stepped forward, speaking with the auction manager. Elias could not hear the words, but he saw money change hands. A lot of money. The decision was already made. "She's being sold again?" Elias asked quietly. The guard sighed. "Not sold. Claimed." The words sounded worse. The giant woman suddenly spoke, her voice low but firm. "I will not go." Several guards immediately raised their weapons. "Quiet," one of them warned. Elias looked up at her. Up close, her anger looked more like desperation, like someone who had lost too much already. "Why do they want you?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then answered in a whisper. "Because I survived." Before Elias could ask more, the armed group approached the platform. Their leader smiled, as if looking at a prize. "So this is the famous Untamable giant," he said. "You caused quite a loss for many buyers." She said nothing. The man turned to the guards. "Prepare sedation. I don't want another incident." At that moment, the giant woman's breathing changed. Elias saw it, the moment before someone decided to fight. If she resisted now, they would hurt her. Maybe worse. Without thinking, Elias stepped forward slightly. "Wait." Every head turned toward him. The leader looked amused. "And who are you?" "Maintenance," Elias said, trying to keep his voice calm. "The restraint system is unstable. If you sedate her while the locks are active, it could damage her nervous system." The words came naturally. Half truth, half guess. The man frowned. "Is that true?" The guards looked uncertain. None of them understood the system well enough to argue. Elias continued quickly. "Give me a few minutes to reset it safely." The leader studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. "Fine. But be quick." As the guard stepped back, Elias moved closer to the giant woman again. His hands worked on the panel, but his voice dropped to a whisper. "You don't want to go with them." Her answer was immediate. "No." "Then don't fight yet," he said. "Trust me." She stared at him, confused. Humans had never asked for her trust before. "Why?" she asked quietly. Elias paused. He did not have a good reason. "Because everyone else already gave up on you," he said. "I didn't." For the first time, the anger in her eyes faded slightly. Across the hall, the armed leader watched carefully. His smile disappeared. Something about the situation felt wrong. He turned to one of his men. "Find out who that human is." Meanwhile, Elias finished adjusting the restraints. The locks loosened just enough to allow movement without triggering alarms. The giant woman felt it immediately. Freedom. Not complete, but close. Their eyes met again. No words were needed this time. The guard stepped forward with sedation tools ready. And in that moment, far above the auction station, a transmission signal activated, marking both the giant woman and the human as priority targets. The auction had ended, but now, hunters across the system knew exactly where to look. The moment the guard stepped closer with the sedation tools, the air in the auction hall changed. Everyone expected the giant woman to fight. Her muscles tightened. The chains moved slightly. The guards raised their weapons, ready for violence. But she did nothing. She remembered the human's words. "Trust me." Elias kept his eyes on the control panel, pretending to finish his work, but his mind raced. He knew he could not overpower armed guards or stop a private security team. He was just a mechanic. But humans survive by thinking, not by being stronger. He pressed one last command into the system. The restraint locks blinked green. "System reset complete," he said calmly. The leader of the armed group nodded. "Good. Step away." Elias slowly moved back, his heart beating fast. The guards approached the giant woman, lifting the sedation device. For a second, nothing happened. Then the lights above the platform suddenly flickered. A loud electrical crack echoed through the hall as sparks burst from the ceiling. Several cleaning drones malfunctioned and dropped to the floor. The main screen went dark. The guards looked up in confusion. "What was that?" one shouted. Elias raised his hands. "Power surge. I told you the system was unstable." It wasn't entirely a lie. He had redirected power through an old maintenance circuit. Not enough to shut down the station, just enough to create chaos. In the moment of distraction, the giant woman moved. Not violently, carefully. She stood up slowly, testing the loosened restraints. The chains slipped free from the weakened locks. By the time the guards realized what happened, she was already standing at her full height. The room fell silent. She looked down at Elias. He gave a small nod. That was all she needed. Instead of attacking, she stepped off the platform and moved toward the open service corridor behind the stage. Fast but controlled. "Stop her!" the leader shouted. Guards rushed forward, but the flickering lights and failing system slowed them. Elias quickly pulled open a maintenance door. "This way," he said. For a brief moment, she hesitated. Trusting a human went against everything she had learned. Then she followed him. They ran through narrow service tunnels, alarms echoing behind them. The giant woman had to crouch to move through the corridors, but she moved surprisingly quietly for someone her size. "Why are you helping me?" she asked as they ran. Elias didn't look back. "Because you didn't look dangerous. You looked alone." She said nothing after that. Behind them, heavy footsteps and shouting grew louder. The security team was already chasing them. They reached a cargo bay filled with shipping containers. Large transport ships rested in loading positions, preparing to leave the station. Elias stopped, breathing hard. "If we reach one of those ships, we can get off the station." "You will be hunted too," she said. He gave a tired smile. "I think that already started." Before they could move again, armed guards entered the cargo bay from the opposite side. Weapons aimed directly at them. There was no escape. The leader stepped forward slowly, clapping once. "Impressive," he said. "A maintenance worker causing this much trouble." The giant woman stepped in front of Elias instinctively, shielding him with her body. The leader laughed softly. "You see, even untamable beasts learn loyalty." Her eyes burned with anger, but she did not attack. Elias noticed something behind the guards, a control crane suspended above the cargo area. Heavy containers hung from magnetic locks. An idea formed instantly. Humans were not stronger, but they noticed things others ignored. He quietly reached toward a nearby control switch. The leader raised his weapon. "Enough games. Both of you come with us." Elias pressed the button. The magnetic locks released. Massive cargo containers crashed down between them and the guards, shaking the entire bay. Dust filled the air as metal slammed against the floor, blocking the path. "Run!" Elias shouted. This time, the giant woman did not hesitate. She grabbed him carefully and sprinted toward the nearest transport ship as chaos erupted behind them. As the ship doors began to close, Elias looked back one last time at the station. He realized something important. He had not just freed her. He had made enemies powerful enough to chase them across the stars. And somewhere in the system, a signal spread quietly between hunter networks. The giant had escaped, and the human who helped her was now worth capturing alive. The transport ship left the station in silence. No one spoke as the stars stretched into long lines outside the window. The autopilot carried them away from the auction sector, deeper into unregulated space where patrol ships rarely traveled. Elias sat on the floor near the control panel, still catching his breath. His hands trembled slightly now that the danger had passed, at least for the moment. Across from him, the giant woman remained standing, her head lowered so she would not hit the ceiling. She watched him carefully, as if still trying to understand why he helped her. "You should not have done that," she said finally. Elias gave a tired smile. "Too late now." She studied him for a moment before speaking again. "You lost your life because of me." He shrugged. "My life was fixing broken lights. I think I'll survive." For the first time, A small expression appeared on her face. Not quite a smile, but close. After a long silence, Elias asked the question that had been on his mind since the auction. Why were they so desperate to take you? Her expression darkened again. My people were strong, she said slowly. Not only in body. Our biology adapts quickly. We survive environments that kill others. Long ago, powerful groups wanted to use us, control us. And you refused, Elias guessed. She nodded. My tribe fought back. Most of us died. The words were simple, but the weight behind them was heavy. Elias leaned back against the wall. So the auction wasn't just selling you. No, she said quietly. It was a trap. Someone wanted me found. Before Elias could respond, the ship's console suddenly flashed with a warning signal. Incoming transmission detected. The screen activated automatically. A masked figure appeared, voice distorted. You have something that belongs to us, the voice said calmly. Return the giant, and the human will be allowed to live. Elias laughed nervously. That's not very convincing. The giant woman stepped closer to the screen, anger returning to her eyes. I belong to no one. The transmission ended instantly. The silence that followed felt heavier than before. They will keep coming, she said. Elias nodded. He already knew. Hours later, the ship exited warp near a quiet asteroid field to avoid tracking signals. While checking navigation systems, Elias discovered something unexpected, a hidden signal repeating on an old frequency. He frowned. This signal, it's not a hunter beacon. She stepped closer. What is it? I think it's a distress signal. The pattern matched her species' language markings from the auction files. Her eyes widened slightly. That is impossible. You said your people were gone. I thought they were. Hope and fear mixed in her voice for the first time. Elias traced the signal source. It came from a distant planet outside normal trade routes, a place marked as abandoned after a past conflict. If this is real, he said carefully, there might be survivors. She turned away, struggling with the idea. Hope was dangerous after losing everything. You do not have to help me anymore, she said quietly. You already risked enough. Elias looked at the star map, then back at her. If someone helped me when I had nothing, he said, I want to find them too. Before she could answer, warning alarms suddenly activated again. Multiple ships dropped out of warp around the asteroid field. Hunter vessels. They had followed them. The giant woman clenched her fists. They will destroy this ship. Elias stared at the controls, thinking fast. Fighting was impossible. Running would not work either. But humans rarely won by doing the expected thing. He smiled slightly. Then we don't fight, he said. We make them chase us. The engines roared to life as the small transport ship shot forward into the asteroid field, weaving between massive rocks while enemy ships followed closely behind. Outside, explosions lit the darkness of space. Inside the cockpit, the giant woman realized something important. The human was not the strongest person she had met, but he was the first one who refused to give up. And for the first time since her tribe fell, she allowed herself to believe that survival might still be possible. The transport ship shook violently as it rushed through the asteroid field. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit. Large rocks drifted past the windows, spinning slowly in the darkness. Behind them, hunter ships followed closely, their engines burning bright as they fired warning shots. Elias gripped the controls tightly. He was not a pilot, but he understood machines, and machines followed rules. Hold on, he said. The giant woman stood behind him, steady even as the ship trembled. Her eyes moved between the asteroids and the enemy ships closing in behind them. They are faster, she said. I know, Elias replied. So we make them slower. He adjusted the ship's power output, pushing more energy into the engines while shutting down non-essential systems. The ship became unstable but faster, slipping through narrow gaps between the asteroids. One hunter ship followed too closely. It clipped a spinning rock and exploded in a flash of light. The others slowed, becoming more careful. That was all Elias needed. He changed direction suddenly, diving deeper into the field. The ship's scanner struggled, but the hunter ships began losing formation. Minutes later, the asteroid field opened into empty space. The distress signal source appeared ahead, a damaged station orbiting a quiet blue planet. The giant woman stared at the screen, her breathing slowing. The signal markings were clear now. They belonged to her people. They survived, she whispered. But relief did not last long. 2 remaining hunter ships exited the asteroid field behind them. They will not stop, she said. Elias nodded. Then we end this here. He guided the ship toward the damaged station instead of running. As they approached, small defense turrets suddenly activated around the structure. Old but still functional. The hunters fired first. The station responded. Energy blasts crossed the darkness as hidden defenses awakened, striking one of the hunter ships. The second ship tried to retreat, but it was too late. The station's weapons disabled its engines, leaving it drifting helplessly in space. Silence followed. The chase was over. Docking clamps locked onto the transport ship, and the airlock opened slowly. Elias stepped out carefully beside the giant woman. Inside the station, several figures emerged from the shadows. Giants. Older, weaker, but alive. For a long moment, no one moved. The survivors stared at her in disbelief, as if seeing a ghost return. You came back, one of them said softly. Her voice trembled for the first time. I thought I was alone. The survivors' eyes then shifted toward Elias. Suspicion filled the room. Humans had never been trusted by their kind. He helped me, she said before anyone could speak. He freed me. The tension slowly eased. Over the next days, Elias helped repair the station's failing systems while the surviving giants reunited. The distress signal had been their last hope, sent blindly into space. Now it had been answered. One evening, Elias stood near the observation window, watching the planet below. The giant woman joined him. You can leave now, she said. Your people are out there. Elias smiled slightly. Maybe, but I think I'm needed here more. She looked at him, understanding what that meant. In saving her, he had found something too. Purpose. News of what happened spread quietly across nearby systems. The story changed with every telling. Some said a human outsmarted hunters. Others said he tamed an untamable giant. But the truth was simpler. He never tried to control her. He only gave her a choice. And because of that choice, a species that was nearly erased found hope again. As the stars shone beyond the station windows, the giant woman finally felt something she had not felt in years. She was no longer a prisoner. She was home. And across the galaxy, people would remember the story of the human who proved that true strength was not about power, but about kindness strong enough to change fate.